Well friends, it's the end of the year, which means it's time for an obligatory top 10 games of the year list. Now, despite me fairly liberally expressing my hatred for 2014 in terms of gaming, and rest assured, it was a bad year, I can still think of at least 10 games that I derived a great deal of entertainment from during the shit show that was 2014. The forthcoming games in this video either managed to entertain me or captivate me to the point where I want to recommend them to as many people as possible, which is what I'm here to do right now. Before we get into the list, let's cover the rules I applied when formulating my list. Yes, my list is so important I actually sat down and devised some arbitrary rules. Number 1. This is just my opinion, and I want to emphasize that for those of you looking to be pricks in the comments. The only criteria I used in terms of ranking was based on how much I enjoyed the respective title, and that's it. It didn't matter whether or not it was due to gameplay, presentation, story, whatever. All that matters was how much I enjoyed the experience, as it should be. Please understand that so I don't have to sift through stupid comments telling me I'm wrong about what I like. Number 2. Remakes, re-releases, and remastered games can't make the list. No fucking surprises there. Finally, number 3. I actually had to play the game. I didn't play every game released this year because I don't have an infinite supply of cash. So if you're wondering why games like Alien Isolation or Shovel Knight aren't on this list, that's why. Just because I didn't mention a game you like doesn't mean I'm negating the quality of the game. Unless it was Sonic Boom or something, in which case, yeah, that game fucking sucks. Before we start, it'd be nice if people could wait until the end of the video before commenting, saying shit like, you're a casual or some fucking nonsense. If you leave a comment without watching the whole video, I'll fucking know. With that out of the way, let's get down to business. First, let's quickly start with 2 honorable mentions. Wolfenstein: The New Order. I really enjoyed The New Order, and it was definitely a pleasant surprise considering I wasn't expecting much from the start. Man, was I wrong. Wolfenstein: The New Order is fast-paced, fun, and didn't take itself too seriously while simultaneously developing interesting characters and a plot in a shooter that doesn't just break down to America fuck yeah, even though it still wasn't super coherent. I also enjoyed the game's emphasis on player choice, often allowing the player to approach combat in a number of different ways, which always scores points for me. My only real grievance is that the game is somewhat short for a single player only affair. If you can look over that, it's a game I wholeheartedly recommend to everybody who wants to play a shooter that isn't just a fucking hallway simulator. Titanfall. I know everybody loves to hate Titanfall for some reason I can't put my finger on, but I really enjoyed Titanfall for what it was, and it managed to hold my attention more so than a shooter has in a long time. I'm not denying that Titanfall had a lot of problems. It lacked content big time, and a campaign can't even be considered a campaign since it's just fucking multiplayer, and the AI makes no sense. But Titanfall truly excelled in the gameplay department despite some unbalanced weapons like that fucking smart pistol. The jetpacks, wall running, and parkour were really exhilarating for me. As a person who enjoys being highly mobile in shooters, it was great to play a game that rewarded me for moving around with agility and precision, unlike other shooters that encourage camping that shall remain nameless. Guns had no recoil, but who cares when they're fun to use? Just like the Titans, which really made the game stand out for me. I love giant robots and mechs, so playing a game that allowed me to jump in and out of one on the fly while enabling me to tear up the competition on foot was a dream come true. Titanfall still has a long way to go in many areas, but this game is a solid foundation for what I hope will be a long-running series. Titanfall isn't exactly innovative like the typical IGN editorial would have you believe, but it differentiates itself enough from the competition to make it stand out as a really solid, fast-paced and fun multiplayer shooter. With those honorable mentions out of the way, it's time to get started. These are my top 10 games of 2014. Number 10. Super Time Force Ultra. I must admit I was surprised by how good Super Time Force Ultra revealed itself to be. In an indie landscape where so many people are trying to tell unique and innovative stories, or express complex ideas in a heavy-handed fashion while neglecting gameplay, Super Time Force Ultra focuses on gameplay while simultaneously exploring a really unique concept with time travel, and they successfully wove it into gameplay, which is why the title is so fucking great. While Super Time Force Ultra is not exactly difficult or particularly mind-bending considering it's both a platformer and a puzzler, it was consistently fun and offered a unique gameplay experience by allowing players to reverse time and fix their mistakes in order to complete a level within a certain time limit. It's particularly cool to watch the video at the end of each level that shows what you did as a player in real time, and this offers a lot of replay value for those who want to beat levels with absolute precision. Super Time Force Ultra is also a great looking game with a fantastic pixel art style, as well as a solid 8-bit soundtrack and some really amusing, well-written dialogue that made what was initially a game completely off my radar into one of the most enjoyable indie games I've played in a while. It's not better than last year's Papers, Please, and I don't think it's better than Hotline Miami either. But it's a really solid platformer from a gameplay standpoint, which cements its place at number 10 on my list. Number 9. Sunset Overdrive. Oh shit, Fringy put an Xbox One exclusive on his top 10 list? Burn him at the stake. I guarantee you someone will comment on this video and bitch about the fact that no Sony exclusive is on this list. I know it, I fucking know it. Shit, I'm getting off topic. Sunset Overdrive, the game that I decided to buy an Xbox One to play this year. Now, while I'm not satisfied with my Xbox One purchase, considering it still has barely any fucking games just like the PS4, I am satisfied with Sunset Overdrive because it's a very fun game and a breath of fresh air among the typical AAA fuckery. The reason why Sunset Overdrive was a good game was not necessarily due to its colourful and vibrant art style, or its fairly entertaining story, or even the general lack of seriousness that permeates throughout the game. No, I enjoyed Sunset Overdrive because it was built from the ground up to facilitate fun gameplay by any means necessary, with the mindset that fun trumps realism, and that's definitely something I can get behind. The shooting mechanics, parkour elements, and overall aesthetics manage to blend together in a game that really doesn't take itself seriously, instead focusing on ensuring gameplay is over the top, frantic, and constantly enjoyable, which it most assuredly is. The weapons were fantastic to use, the parkour mechanics worked much better than I was expecting, and the entire game is just a sight to behold, especially when all your amps are activated and you're fighting off virtually hundreds of OD'd with a crazy arsenal of weapons. Once again, it doesn't innovate as much as Insomniac would like you to believe, but the game is a refreshing change of pace in an industry where shooter is synonymous with grey corridors and awful writers who think throwing in the phrase Oscar Mike into each fucking line equates to good dialogue and character development. Sunset Overdrive is just a blast to play, and a game every Xbox One owner should pick up. Number 8. The Walking Dead Season 2. Now, many of you are aware that I do enjoy me some great storytelling in video games, and when a game comes along that actually makes me cry, it'll always have a place in my mind. Especially for someone like me, who's got a heart as black as fucking coal. The Walking Dead was one of my top games from 2012 because it was able to successfully tell a riveting story while developing character in a way that was not usually seen in video games. It caught many of us off guard, and managed to become one of the best stories in gaming. When I heard the announcement that The Walking Dead would receive a second season, I was excited, and man was I not disappointed. The Walking Dead Season 2 tells a truly excellent story that in many ways manages to surpass its predecessor through the brilliantly handled development of Clementine, who has quickly become one of my favourite video game characters. You see that, feminists? I didn't need to precede that statement with female, because that's not an important factor, you thick fucks. Unlike Tomb Raider, which was praised excessively for fairly average character development, Clementine is a great character because she drives the plot instead of being driven by the plot, and her end state is justified because of how well the story is written. The choices presented to the player are also particularly grueling, and far more frequently fall under shades of grey, which I love. Even though the choices don't necessarily change the plot drastically, they immerse you in the story, far more effectively than many linear narratives do. Season 2 also managed to explore themes not usually touched on in video game stories, such as the darkest recesses of the human mind and how human beings react when pushed to their absolute emotional limits, which I loved. Every episode was well written and felt important to the plot. The Walking Dead remains more memorable to me due to its damn near flawless ending, but Season 2 is an experience I can recommend without hesitation, even to people like me who don't give a flying fuck about zombies. Number 7. Mario Kart 8. Even as a huge fan of Mario Kart, I have to admit that Mario Kart Wii and 7, while good, were kind of fucking dull. After the massive paradigm shift that was the excellent Double Dash and the portable greatness of Mario Kart DS, the series definitely needed to have something new and excited kicked up the arse of the core Mario Kart gameplay to really elevate it back to greatness, which was anti-gravity. The strangest thing about anti-gravity in Mario Kart 8 is that on the surface it really comes across as a shallow and pointless new addition to the gameplay, but when you really start to think about it, anti-gravity not only added a new layer of strategy in terms of shortcuts and how you race against your opponents, it also allowed the developers to truly flex their creative skills and create some of the most mind-bending courses in any Mario Kart title. The game itself is a sensory treat. Mario Kart 8 looks fucking excellent due to its incredibly vibrant and detailed art design, and the fact that it runs at 60 FPS makes everything look much smoother. The soundtrack is as good as you would expect from a Mario Kart title, with Mount Wario and Rainbow Road N64 standing out in particular. It's also content rich, with a solid roster and the best course selection of any Mario Kart title, as well as a great online component and fucking excellently valued DLC. But at the end of the day, Mario Kart 8 makes this list because it's just really fun and a blast to play. Mario Kart 8, while very iterative, not only expands on the formula, but refines it with probably the most solid feeling driving in the entire series. It's far from perfect though. The battle component is fucking shit, and even though I would have really liked a Double Dash sequel, Mario Kart 8 managed to surpass many of its predecessors and become one of the better Mario Kart titles, and probably the best Mario Kart since Double Dash, which is why it makes number 7 on my list. Number 6. Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. Holy shit, is this game good. Now, I have to admit that I was not remotely interested in Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor when it was first announced. And let's get real, guys, neither were you. To many of us, it looked like a fairly average hack-and-slash open-world title that would pass as quickly as it came. Even a week prior to launch, I did not care about playing it, despite the very good reviews it received. But with nothing else to play until late October, I decided to pick up Shadow of Mordor from Steam. And that is a decision I do not regret. Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor is a game that doesn't innovate in any real capacity, yet it manages to so successfully take the Batman Arkham formula and improve on it to the point that I believe it truly surpasses the Arkham series. Now, in terms of story, it doesn't beat out Batman. I didn't understand the story, perhaps because I can't remember everything about the Lord of the Rings, and the setup was fairly cliche along with the characters, but Shadow of Mordor makes my list because it excels in the gameplay department. The combat is just fucking awesome, with a variety of different attacks at the disposal of Talion. With a genuinely useful skill tree, you're going to see your character develop in a way that actually feels organic. Unlike the Arkham games, and especially Assassin's Creed, the combat is actually challenging, and often you'll need to retreat unless you want an orc sword forcibly shoved up your ass. Speaking of which, the Nemesis system was just a plain great idea, contextualizing death and really making the player want to hunt down the orc fuck that killed them facilitates emergent gameplay in a fantastic way. Branding an orc and watching them set up a feud only for you to jump in on the party and stick a dagger in your target's jugular never gets old. And neither do the side missions that are varied and actually rewarding to play through. Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor serves as a perfect example for why a lack of hype is often the best way to promote a game. Shadow of Mordor wasn't on anybody's radar and came out only to blow everybody away with how well crafted the gameplay was. The game is extremely derivative of other successful franchises, but that sure as shit doesn't mean it's not good. Number 5. South Park: The Stick of Truth. You all saw this one coming. It's no surprise to anybody that I'm a huge fan of South Park. I've always been a fan of that style of humor, and most episodes usually feature some really good social commentary, and given my generally vulgar nature, the show appeals to me. When The Stick of Truth was first announced, I was fucking excited. Finally, a genuine attempt to make a great South Park game. After multiple delays and publisher shifts, especially when it came to Ubisoft, I was concerned the game would lose focus or potentially not even come out. But through some miraculous miracle, not only did the game release, but it was fucking great. The best aspect of South Park: The Stick of Truth is its presentation, which is immediately obvious the second you boot up the game. I've never played a licensed game before that was able to so successfully capture the feeling of the TV show, and The Stick of Truth really does. The animations are spot on, and the designs are uncanny. But none of this would matter if the game wasn't true to the heart of the South Park experience. Thankfully, it was most assuredly a South Park game. It's probably the funniest game I've ever played. The writing is spot on, the plot is what you'd expect from one of the more dramatic episodes of South Park, and the voice acting is great as always. The game is also filled with plenty of references to the TV show for longtime fans in hidden locations for those who look around the brilliantly brought to life town of South Park. But underneath all of this lies a fairly solid turn-based RPG that's pretty damn fun. It actually requires some level of strategy, at least earlier on, and the combat managed to successfully match the tone of the game in a way that makes the combat actually logical in the South Park universe, or as logical as anything can be in South Park. There's plenty of loot to find, attacks to unlock, and a variety of enemies to fight, from just normal kids and hallway monitors to Nazi zombie fetuses. The combat also requires more real-time actions than the typical turn-based RPG. If I were to hold anything against the game, it would be its length. A 10-hour RPG is pretty short, and the classes aren't super differentiated, so replay value is limited. With that in mind, South Park: The Stick of Truth was a fantastic experience for South Park fans, a really fun turn-based RPG, and a testament to how good a licensed game can be when it's not just a simple cash grab. If you love South Park, you'll love The Stick of Truth. Number 4. Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair. Now, there's a good reason why I never talk about anime or manga or whatever the fuck on my channel before. It's because I don't usually like anime, and this really shouldn't come as a surprise to many of you. I can appreciate that people enjoy big-eyed, almost offensively stereotypical characters and overly dramatic writing, but that's just not for me. However, Danganronpa 2 as an anime game managed to not only pique my interest, but actually hook me all the way through, going on to be one of the best games I've played all year. I have to say right now that Danganronpa 2 does not have a lot of gameplay. Really, it's more of an interactive visual novel along the lines of the excellent Phoenix Wright series. However, Danganronpa 2 makes the list because it's got fucking excellent story and genuinely interesting characters that develop over the course of the 20-hour narrative. I may be biased because I've always liked stories that explore the human condition when a person is thrust into an impossible circumstance, but as we've seen with the Hunger Games films, pulling it off is easier said than done. Danganronpa 2 sees 16 high school students trapped on an island where the only way of escaping is to murder another student and get away with it during the class trial, after which everybody else gets killed. If the students can identify the murderer, only that person dies. This sort of setup is fucking great from the start and immediately establishes palpable tension, but really culminates in certain spots during the story. The class trials are some of the most captivating examples of interactive storytelling I've seen in recent memory. They're always really well thought out and mind-bending, forcing you to contemplate what characters you thought you could trust. And often, the answer is not as simple as it first seems. Now, the issue with Danganronpa 2 could have been that the overarching plot would have been shit, but it's handled extraordinarily well, and it's pulled off fantastically, especially during the final class trial. The characters themselves are also really interesting, and well performed, considering this is a dub of a fucking Japanese game, which almost always spells disaster. Many of them actually develop, and through some of the characters are fucking annoying, the majority of them are entertaining. Danganronpa 2 is a game that I do not regret purchasing a Vita for. It's tense, well written, and explores really interesting themes while never getting boring to me. And I'm hoping that we'll see a sequel someday for this truly great game. Number 3. The Wolf Among Us. Now, after The Walking Dead came out, I basically knew I was going to buy virtually every Telltale game from that point forward. So when The Wolf Among Us made its way to Steam, I picked it up sight unseen despite knowing nothing about the Fables universe. At first, I was concerned I wasn't going to like the universe since it's based on fairy tales, and I fucking hate fairy tales. Man, was I wrong. The Wolf Among Us is gritty, dark, and will likely stay in my memory for a long time as one of the best examples of storytelling in games I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing. Unlike The Walking Dead, The Wolf Among Us is set in a unique universe that caught my attention almost immediately. Due to circumstances I don't want to spoil for you, classic fairy tale characters have relocated to a suburb called Fabletown in New York, where many of them struggle to get by in a town filled with corruption, mistrust, and deception. See? Already more interesting than just, oh look, zombies. After a gruesome murder occurs, Big B Wolf, also known as the Big Bad Wolf, must investigate the case and finds himself wrapped up in something much larger and darker than he could have ever predicted. I feel as though The Wolf Among Us captivated me more than The Walking Dead, not only because I preferred the universe, but also because it was an investigation story instead of a survival story, which means there's a clear end goal. Naturally, you want to solve the mystery, and my eagerness to get to the bottom of the case actually kept me excited for the next episode, but it was the characters and the world that really kept me so hooked. From the beginning, you feel as though your knowledge on this world is limited, and the more you investigate, the more disconnected you feel from everybody around you. So much so that you really begin to place yourself in the shoes of Big B, and start to feel as though you're just some chump who's being played by everybody around you. Even though you're the fucking wolf, and you could kick everybody's asses, you always feel like you have no control over events, and that sort of feeling in a game is foreign, which is why I liked it. This was of course aided by some fucking excellent writing and great voice acting. Every character actually has character, and they react in the ways you would expect, and the choices you're forced to make actually have weight and are very difficult. The way the world establishes itself makes it clear from the offset that most of the residents of Fabletown aren't bad people, and in fact, you begin to question your own morality throughout the story. story, as well as the morality of not only your foes but your allies. This sort of storytelling really appeals to me, and it develops so well through the course of the story. Part of the reason why the plot works so well is due to the source material. Regardless of what you do as the player, there's always a general mistrust of Bigby, which, unlike many shit stories where characters act irrationally purely to progress the plot, here it actually makes sense given his history of eating people. Throughout the course of the story, Bigby also develops based on your actions as the player in a very natural way. Depending on whether or not you're a colossal dick or the guy trying to make amends like I played, Bigby really grew, and let me just say that the ending was fucking amazing and left me thinking for days. This isn't even touching on the excellent art style and the fucking phenomenal soundtrack. If you claim to care about storytelling in video games, you have to play The Wolf Among Us. It's fucking excellent. Number 2.
Then it's going to be a bloody coronation. Now, release my Umbran sister.
Bayonetta 2. I'm gonna put it simply, Bayonetta 2 is the best character action game I've ever played. That's not hyperbole either. I have a hard time thinking of a single minute of this game that I did not enjoy, and most of the time, my face hurt from smiling. Whether or not you love or hate Nintendo is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is that Bayonetta 2 is a brilliantly crafted action game where the player mechanics work so flawlessly together that pulling off lengthy combos and decimating your enemies becomes damn near a narcotic. The reason why Bayonetta 2 is referred to by Platinum as non-stop climax action, and that's the way I like it. The combat system is so well designed, it's almost unreal. Every single attack carries punch and actually feels impactful. Dodging and activating witch time perfectly never gets old. The way the weapon fire is blended into combos really emphasizes that feeling where the harder you press the button, the more impactful your moves are, which is great. And holy shit, is it fun to release the Umbran climax upon your foes with devastating efficiency. Don't even get me started on the boss fights. The boss fights in Bayonetta 2 are so fantastic compared to the shit we've had to endure recently. Unlike Destiny bosses that are virtually bullet sponges with the same 3 moves, in Bayonetta 2 they feel like actual adversaries on the same level as Bayonetta herself, and some of them offer a stiff challenge. They put what you've learned throughout the game to the test, which is how it's done, and boss fights are always ended with awe-inspiring finishing moves. It helps that Bayonetta 2 is an exciting game to look at and listen to. The soundtrack is super upbeat when it needs to be, as well as epic and climactic during intense, high-octane action. The game itself looks fine, but it's the designs of the characters as well as the angels and demons that make the universe feel distinct. The designs of the characters actually have character. And while we're on the subject, let's talk about Bayonetta herself, because she's a fucking awesome character despite popular opinion amongst fucking idiots. I'm not just talking about how sexy she is, and man is she sexy, especially her posh British accent. Bayonetta is a good character on the whole. She actually has personality and is a strong protagonist who uses her sexuality to her advantage. She's got sass, confidence, and she's a fucking juggernaut. Out of the many female video game characters I'm fond of, I would want to hang out with Bayonetta the most. Ultimately, Bayonetta 2 serves as an example of how to make an action game. Ensure that every facet of the game's design is dedicated to making you as the player feel awesome and powerful. Bayonetta 2 is not an innovator, but a refinement on action games of the past, and it refines the formula so well that it stands atop the pile as one of the best character action games ever made, easily placing it at number 2 on my list. Number 1. Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. When I finished playing Bayonetta 2, I really didn't think a game could top it. Out of all the games I played this year, Bayonetta 2 remained the most enjoyable. But this one game not only managed to beat out Bayonetta 2, along with every other game released this year, but also surpass my already sky-high expectations and show everybody that Nintendo still have it. Super Smash Bros. For Wii U is not only the best Smash Bros. Game, but also the best game on the Wii U, the best game on any current gen system, and the best game of 2014. The fighting mechanics in play with Smash Bros. Wii U have, in my opinion, reached a good middle ground between the frantic pace of Melee and the weightiness of Brawl, culminating into what I consider to be the tightest and most precise feeling Smash game out there. The attacks carry power behind them, movement feels controllable while fast, and launching your enemies off screen to their deaths has never been so satisfying. For those looking for the core Smash Bros. Experience, it's here in fucking spades. But what makes Smash Bros. For Wii U really stand out is how it adopts the unpopular approach to modern video game development. That being adding so much content into the game that your head will likely explode as you consider what to do first. With 49 characters and the least clone fighters in the Smash game, the roster has never been better, with probably the best spread of characters in any Smash game. Nearly all of the dozens of items are unique and have some sort of useful function on the battlefield. The stage selection, while featuring less new courses than Brawl, is still great, with good representation from a number of different franchises. The modes though, seriously, there are so many modes to choose from. Not only is there your standard 4-player Smash, but also 8-player Smash, which is fucking madness and crazy fun. Add on classic mode with a new challenge system that provides massive replayability, as well as the master and crazy orders, and the best online functionality in a Smash game. And what you've got is a game that is not short on game modes, and that isn't even covering all of them. But that's not it. The soundtrack is fucking jaw-dropping, with a massive, and I do mean massive, collection of some of the best musical compositions in video game history, as well as an option suite that allows you to choose how frequently you want songs to occur on each respective stage. The music offerings on show in Smash Bros. For Wii U are incredible. This is ignoring that the game looks great, running at 1080p 60 FPS like it's nobody business. And during the hours I've put into this game, not a single frame rate drop has occurred. That's impressive. But at the end of the day, even if we ignore the enormous volume of content, the extremely polished nature of the game, the number of options available, as well as the game's presentation, Super Smash Bros. For Wii U is extremely fun to play. In fact, it's the most fun I've had all year. And if you've been wanting to get a Wii U but haven't found that one game to purchase the console for, this is it. And if you own a Wii U, you need to own this game. Super Smash Bros. For Wii U is one of the best games I've played in a long time, cementing its place on my list as Game of the Year. That's it for this year's countdown. I hope you agreed with my choices, because if you didn't, no doubt you're already leaving a comment telling me why my opinion is wrong, which I'm not going to be happy about. After all the drama bullshit I've had to endure all year on the internet, I'm not really keen on having to explain to some people in plain fucking English the reasons behind my choices. Again, this is just my opinion, and you can feel free to disagree with me. Fuck, if you think you got a better list, let me know in the comments. I'm not being sarcastic. I'd like to hear about your favorite games this year so I can go check them out for myself. That's it for now. I hope you all appreciate the time it took to produce this video. Seriously guys, this script was over 10 pages long. That's half the length of a fucking TV show screenplay, and I wrote all this shit myself, along with editing the fucking thing and running the website at the same time. Regardless, thank you for watching the video, and hopefully you enjoyed it and potentially found some games to play over the Christmas break. Until next time, I'm Fringy, and as always, have a good one.